Now then, people, and welcome back to the Just Joe Football Show. It's that time again. It's the start of a new season, and when you're in the Championship, there is only one man you should be speaking to, and of course that man is Mr. Benjamin Bloom. We are here to do a bumper Championship preview. I've got a lot of questions for Ben. He's going to give me his take on it, and yeah, that'll be that. Before we do get into it though, I just want to quickly update people on the sponsor. Now, Football Prizes do, of course, sponsor the watch-alongs, but their prize this week is a ticket for the Portsmouth game. So I can't really promote it on the watch-along because the game will already be going on, right? So this week, they have a fantastic prize. You can win hospitality tickets, 2 of them, to Leeds United versus Portsmouth on the opening day. And if you don't win that top prize, there is also tickets available for the Borough Carabao Cup game and some other Willie Gnonto signed memorabilia. The link to Football Prizes is in the description. They're with us again for another season. Thanks to them. Thanks to you. And yeah, let's say hello to Ben. Ben, how's tricks, my man? It's been a while.
I'm good, man. Did you expect us to be sitting here again doing this for another season, honestly?
I can't lie, no. With all due respect, I didn't want to see your face ever again, to be honest, Ben.
No, mate, I'm all good, and you know, however last season finished, you can't beat this excitement now. This final week going in, everyone's hopes are sky high. Nobody's lost the game. Let's do this.
Yeah. It's got. Before we get into that, then, how are you finding being a Premier League content creator now? I know you're still here, Phil, but there's some Premier League content. You've been invited on the 12th Man, which I know a lot of my viewers watch when I'm on there.
I'm not going on without you.
So, hang on. There we go. We're back. Yeah. So how's it been being a Premier League content creator now?
Well, you know, it's fairly tricky because we've spent so long not doing that. And I mean, not to go into the weeds with the YouTube game, but you build a certain audience over here. You can't just move over there. And yeah, just very different. 8 less games. You know, I'm all prepped to not win a game for 2 months in a row and all of that good stuff. But I'll keep my grubby mitts on the Championship, put it that way.
To be honest, I have speculatively put Leif Davis and Amari Hutchinson in my fantasy FPL. So I'm thinking I might get ahead of the game with that because a lot of Premier League players won't be aware of just how good them two can be. So let's hope. But Liverpool opening day.
And yeah. I can't go as well. I've got my season
really?
ticket and I can't make that one, which is very annoying. But
that's not good, is it?
Liverpool and Man City, the first 2 games, yeah, it could be fun.
Do you know what I hate most is when we get this the fixture list is random, yet Liverpool have had a newly promoted side for every season for the last 4 seasons or so. Yeah. It's definitely, they played us, they played you, they played Norwich, yeah, they get it all the time. It's a bit of a nightmare. But while we're talking newly promoted sides, Ben, let's get into it from a Championship perspective. Obviously, we've got Derby, we've got Oxford, and we've got Portsmouth. After such a long layoff, actually, Portsmouth we've got on the weekend. They're in the Premier League. They're in the Championship. Sorry. Could we have another Ipswich with these 3 sides? Tell us about these. You're shaking your head. You not think?
No. I think Ipswich will prove to be an outlier. Probably. I mean, you tell me. Maybe a 10 years either side. I don't reckon anyone will go. No. Certainly not automatic to automatic. Maybe
Southampton was the last one, wasn't it, under Adkins?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, we got it 2 years running before the parachute payments really kicked in 2014-15. Norwich did it 1 season, and they both went automatically. Actually, both finished second. But no, I think it. You know, as much as it'll irritate Leeds fans because they were the ones that missed out most on it. Ipswich is a freak. It's a lightning in a bottle, and I don't think it'll be happening again regularly. Oxford scored 19 points fewer than Sheffield Wednesday did to win the playoffs the previous season, and kind of snuck in at the last minute, which, you know, they might just be up for it and ready to go, but that's going to be tough. And Derby are not the same Derby that say Leeds played in the playoffs all those years ago when Mel Morris was throwing the money in. So I think if those two survive, they'll be perfectly happy. Portsmouth is interesting, and you've got them on the opening day, haven't you?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're pleased it's up in beautiful Yorkshire rather than down on the south coast, because that would get rowdy pretty quickly. But I think Portsmouth might bloody a few noses at Fratton Park. But Joe, I think I've got all three of them in the bottom six. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know enough of what. I genuinely don't know enough of any of them, really. I listened to a lot of Championship stuff. I was saying off air, I listened to your 24-1 this morning whilst out on my run. And yeah, I think the bottom six that you mentioned, and obviously Plymouth down there as well, and other teams, I don't see them having a big dent in climbing up the table, mid-table, higher than that. I just don't see it, if we're honest. But do you think there's a case they could all go down? I mean, I know you had Blackburn down there, didn't you? You had Blackburn in your relegation.
I have my 4 relegation theories, don't I? My criteria of chaos, owners, size, bad luck. And if you take someone like Birmingham, you can tick off owners because they did some silly things. You can tick off chaos because they had 4 managers. And you can tick off bad luck for Birmingham because they got relegated with 50 points whilst QPR and Sheffield Wednesday strode past them. So, Joe, it'd be really boring if they did all go down. You would think Portsmouth's home crowd particularly, and Derby's size relative to the division and how well they know it as a club would mean something. And the worry with Blackburn, and I've upset lots of Blackburn fans, but you just got to, you've got to say how you feel, haven't you? But just that ownership, kind of feels like it's trending down, and Smodic will be gone, won't he? And you can't make stars and just get rid of them and expect to trend up the table. No. So, although I do like John Eustace as a manager for that type of club.
Well, they had it with Ben Brereton Diaz in a way as well, similar to Smodic's, didn't they? And obviously it's
went
just
for free. Yeah, Lenihan, Rothwell, who's just come to you guys. Yeah. All great players who ended up just walking out for nothing.
Of course, it's madness. Just while we're on that, Sammy Smodics, obviously Leeds had a tentative link a couple of weeks back. You've been linked as well. Is that still a mover for you at Ipswich, or is that a non-starter?
Smodic?
Yeah. I've seen that.
It's just gone on and on and on and on, hasn't it now? And the guy from The Sun reckons they're $500,000
Nixon
apart. Yeah, and it's, I don't know, it's all a bit...
Yeah. Do you think he could do it in the Prem, Ben?
I don't know. You just never want to be the sign the one season wonder the season after he's had his one season, do you? But I hope so. But I mean, this is not a discussion for now, Joe. But Leeds were able to pull quality players from the European market in the Premier League, whereas Ipswich have gone for English players. And unless you sign players with no Premier League experience, you've got to pay £5 million a year in wages and 20 million quid transfer fees, and you can't do that many of those. So it's all well and good sitting here saying Smodic has got no Premier League experience, but okay, pick out a player who does and tell me how much that would cost and what Ipswich's FFP limit is. But in terms of the Championship conversation, when you have a team just avoids relegation and they have the top scorer in the division and that guy leaves, you kind of go, right, that minus that equals what, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. Game over. I agree with you. Now, just moving on slightly. So my outsider picks, I just wanted to talk about some speculative shouts for teams that will go well. And I'm really dead set on Sheffield Wednesday. I don't know what the transfer business has been like. I'll speak to Ash tomorrow. We're doing like a White Rose Rivals Yorkshire podcast tomorrow. But yeah, I'll speak to him. But it's all on Danny Rowe. I think what a manager he turned out to be for them. I guess you mentioned the owner though. That's the thing in it. Chansiri. You never know. Like it could just go mad at any moment at that club. But also Middlesbrough as well. I quite fancy Middlesbrough this time. I think the season before, Ben, obviously there was a lot of top players that left. I know similarly to, say, Coventry, and it took a while for them to get going, but they did end up getting going. I think they're going to sign Micah Hamilton from City. Luke Ayling will be there as well, who I obviously love. They've got some decent players. I really rate Carrick as a manager. So in terms of my outside pick, what do you make to them two? And also, what would you say yours are sort of like you're not run-of-the-mill Leeds United kind of picks, you know?
Yeah, I like both those picks, to be honest, and I like your logic for both of them as well. Seems too easy with Sheffield Wednesday, doesn't it? If you take the Christmas Day onwards last year, they were 7th, weren't they? Yeah. So, go figure. Just keep that going. And as we'll get onto, Joe, when we discuss the top end, everyone expects a few fewer points right down the table and the standard to be less absurd than it was in, both the top and the bottom. Middlesbrough's really interesting, isn't it? Because I'm kind of with you, but what happens if it doesn't? Because are we going to think, well, was Carrick was Akpom and Archer and Ramsey and Giles, was that what was good for Middlesbrough in that first portion of the season you talk about? So, I kind of predicted as well that those teams in the playoffs 2 years ago, Luton, Middlesbrough, Coventry, not Sunderland, I think that's a 2 years project. Yeah. They could all be in the playoffs again, couldn't they? Those same teams Leeds were in the Premier League at this point. I put Bristol City 7th, partly because my table looked really boring. And I was basically just going at the the GDP of each. I'm going in wealth on all the teams up the table. Just boring, isn't it? But I don't know. There'll be someone who get it together, Joe. And I've always quite liked Liam Manning. I thought he was good at Milton Keynes and then good at Oxford for a short time. So that would be my one. But I could be completely wrong about that. They could be their normal, 12th to 16th.
Yeah. Can you give us a bit on Coventry as well, Ben? Because I think when I'm looking at it, I don't know if enough people are speaking about Coventry, but they look like a decent... And they've got one of the best managers in the division, haven't they, in Matt Robbins, really, let's be honest.
Yeah, so Coventry almost... No, I was going to say they got to the playoff final too quickly, but they didn't. The problem Coventry had is when they got to the playoff final, they did it with two outstanding players... Not necessarily carrying their team. It's you support a team that had Pablo Hernandez carrying them at times, didn't you? It's okay to have a star player who you give the ball to. That I think would Arsenal have been any good without Thierry? Well, they would have been less good without Thierry Henry, wouldn't it? It's okay to have
Saka,
a star.
Though. It's like Saka in the most recent times for Arsenal. Really, Saka is always that man that pops up.
Exactly. It's okay to have star players, but obviously. Yeah. They sell the two, and it's now 3 good transfer windows, Joe. I think they struggled a bit at the start of last season.
Yeah.
But, they've lost O'Hare, but, I think...
He didn't really play much either, did he, last season, Ben? He didn't really.
I think he's a good player, though, Joe.
100%. I'm just saying, is he that big of a loss from what they had last season? I don't disagree. I think he's a great player, Great pickup for United as well.
And they've got goals, haven't they? Because they've got Wright and Sims and Thomas Asante's now in as, kind of an extra body. Sakamoto, the wide lad, looked really good before he got injured. Van Evik down the wing is good. They've still got Chief, although would you be surprised if they didn't still have Chief on August the 31st? So, I think they're the ones outside of the parachute teams who are, have got similar... Arsenal, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, of course. No, I hear you. Now, I want your opinion on the relegated sides next. Obviously, we've got Luton, we've got Sheffield United, and we've got Burnley. Now, starting with Burnley, for me, a lot of people have Burnley doing well because of Scott Parker, because he's been here before. He's not won the division, but he's always gone up, hasn't he? I think he went up with Fulham in that playoff final against Brentford, I think. I forget the left back now who scored the goal.
Joe Bryan.
That's it. I remember watching it keenly because at the time, Leeds were linked with the cream of the Championship and were linked with Watkins and Ben Rama. So when Fulham won, I was like, let's go!
Watkins!
And then nasty. We didn't sign them. When we signed Rodrigo and we signed someone else and they just didn't work out. So Parker's got teams up, Bournemouth and Fulham in the past, but I'm not convinced on him, Ben, and I know you might disagree with me, but I just think it's quite a distinct change from a company style of football to Parker's style of football, whatever Parker's style of football is, but it ain't what company was doing with Burnley, is it? So I'm just not convinced it's going to go that well. After having a chance in Europe, he went to, was it Ghent? I think he went to
Bruges?
Club Bruges. I'm just not sure he's a good manager, if I'm honest, Ben.
Yeah. Scott Parker feels like an impossible argument to win. Like we could like have one of those stage debate things here where you're going to argue against Parker and I'm going to argue for him, and we could be here for an hour and neither of us win. You know.
Yeah.
When I've spoken to Fulham and Bournemouth fans, the thing I heard of was they got promoted in spite of Parker, which is very unfair when someone's taking your team up. But you know, who am I to? You know, if that's their truth and they watch every week.
Some Leeds fans think we got 90 points in spite of Farker as well. Don't worry, that's just those that have agendas, isn't it?
You're entitled to. They're all entitled to their view. Yeah. He did have Mitrovic, Cavaliero, Knockout as his front three at Fulham, and he did have Billing and Solanke. But I just said 5 minutes ago, it's okay to have good players.
True.
And certain managers get the better jobs, which have the more money and the better players. And, you know, people always say to me about Pep Guardiola, you know, could he do it for Halifax or could he do it, you know, in whatever, the National League? And I'm like, why is that? It's not really a relevant question, you know, unless he's getting those jobs and the fact he's not getting it. Anyway, I'm rambling
There's only
off.
one man that would do that, by the way, and that's Marcelo Bielsa.
A first mention. Excellent. Get him in there, Joe. Get him in there. I've got them. I won't. I've got them doing well on the basis they're a year one parachute team with an excellent squad. And you're a parent, Joe. First rule of parenting: be good enough. You can't be a perfect parent. And I think Parker as a manager, you know, you'll say Bielsa was more than good enough. Kieran McKenna last year was more than good enough.
Yeah.
I think Parker might be good enough.
Yeah. I guess you could say in a sense, and I really love him, but you could maybe throw that at Daniel Farker, really. Because is he, especially the level above, do you know what I mean? Does Farker translate to the level above like a Parker, for example? Maybe not. So, yeah, maybe you've got a point in terms of.
I seem to be defending Farker in a lot of conversations lately. I think the
season. I love
him,
it, by the way.
I think the season needs to start, and he needs to bang 2 points per game out for 18 games, and everyone will be quiet, won't they? Or maybe they won't. We'll see what your chat says. Yeah.
Yeah. He'll be on a very short leash, even from me, and I'm a big supporter of his. But I think it's very much. There are no excuses now for Leeds. No. We'll touch on Leeds in a little bit. But, yes, let's talk about Sheffield United now, because I speak to a few Sheffield United fans. They told me they were in the absolute dire straits. They had the guy, only one striker, who's I was told was rubbish and has now rocked up at Newcastle, so he can't have been that bad. Osulu, I think his name was. So they had him. They were losing every man left, right and centre. And now, with a few days left of the season, they've brought in Kiefer Moore, they've got Callum O'Hare, Alfie Gilchrist, they've still got Gus Hamer. They've just brought in Harry Souttar as well, who'll be good at this level. Harrison Burrows as well at left back, and I'm going, oh, maybe I went too soon on them. Maybe this is a Wilder 2.0, like a chance for him to rebuild his side in his image again. Do you know what I mean? That side he had before, it had its time. It maybe got a bit aging with the likes of Basham and stuff all still there when they went down, McBurney even. And now he's like building a new side. And looking at the players, Ben, I think they're gonna go well.
Yeah, and I'm going to stand up for you, and I'm going to stand up for content creators. You were right 6 weeks ago, and you're right now. Because I did the same, and it's a little bit like talking about your family, isn't it? The Sheffield United fans all got cross with me when I said exactly what they were saying. It's like, you know, I can slag my sister off, but you're not allowed to, are you? But no, I was really concerned. I thought, you know, owner's not interested, -2 points. No players coming in. There's going to be sales, and the Cameron Archer deal was weird, wasn't it? Where they basically had signed him but loaned him for a year and given him straight back. But yeah, all those players you reel off are top-end, top-functioning championship players. I'm sure we're going to keep coming back to this theme that it's not going to be 97, 96, 90, 87 next season either, is it? The question I've got for you, though, Joe, is do you get Chris Wilder 18, 19, Basham arriving, which you won't want to remember, but that guy was the guy with Daniel Farker. Actually, Daniel Farker finished above him, didn't he? But or do you get the Chris Wilder who was at Middlesbrough and Watford and who's been relegated with Sheffield United twice since then? That's the thing. Has he still got it?
That's the thing. You bang on, and that's what I was saying. Is this Wilder 2.0, or is it that guy who did so poorly at both of them clubs? It will be interesting to see. They've done really well, though, in terms of getting the players they have with literally no money because of, obviously, this ownership thing.
All before round one as well.
Yes, it's mad, isn't it? Who have they got on the opening day? Do you know off the top of your head?
They're at Preston on Friday night.
Or is that the opening game? There's two, isn't there? There's two.
I can't remember what the other one is, though.
Yeah. To be honest, I've got it in my calendar to do the game. To be fair, next one is Luton. Luton for me is the best setup. Now I know that might sound mad because Burnley haven't lost a lot of players, but my question marks are over Parker. Whereas I look at Luton, they basically bought for the Championship when they were in the Premier League anyway, and I just think that with Rob Edwards and the players they've got, even like bringing in Shandon Baptiste, for example, from Brentford, decent acquisitions, I feel that Luton could go the best of the three that have come down. That's just my opinion. I know you might disagree.
What, so just pure stability, yeah?
Yeah, just continuity, be more set up for the Championship than the others. I'm not sure on Parker, so that's why I've gone out of the three. Luton will probably do the best.
Well, I can't argue with that they're the most stable. They just objectively are, aren't they? Whether that translates into... You just never know with these teams, do you? Like, Sheffield United could go from chaos pre-season and then just bang out 30 points in the first 13 games or something crazy. So the only issue I've got with Luton... I've said this on a few platforms and not been able to articulate it very well. I think they've had 8 seasons in a row that you could call a good season. Right the way up League 2, League 1, even when they survived in the Championship and changed Graham Jones to Nathan Jones, and then middle of the table, playoffs, win the playoffs. Even in the Premier League, they were, they were all right, weren't they? Best of the 3 relegated teams.
Have they still got Alfie Doherty, by the way, or has he gone?
They do, yeah.
He'll go, surely, won't he?
Well,
do you think?
Unless they've completely... Like you say, they've got this 2-year plan that says no one's going, and they go at the end of this season.
Teams have done that. Do you remember, like when Burnley did it with that? They came and then they had that period of longevity in the Prem, didn't they? Where they said, right, let's go down, let's go again, kind of thing.
Yeah. So the only thing is, this will sound really patronising, and you know where I live. I love Luton, but. This is the first time in years, and I know they had expectation on them when they were in the National League, because they were too big for that, obviously, weren't they? But that's very different than having that, and you'll know it as a Leeds, having that ticking parachute payment time bomb thing going of, you've got to get promoted, you've got to leverage this, this situation now and take advantage and keep your Premier League players and pay the wages and get back up. And I don't know. That could be the only downfall, I think. But we learn a lot, don't we, about Rob Edwards, who's basically taken Forest Green up, taken Luton up, nearly survived in the Premier League, and we'll see.
Yeah, it is. You mentioned the parachute payments, and it is such a reality because we've only to look at Norwich. Now the Sharks are circling on their key men, and even Leeds United this summer having to sell Gray, Somerville, and then we're still cautious that more might go. But if we keep what we've got, the following year it's like, well, now your Rutter goes, now your Nonto goes. So it just doesn't stop. You need to get back up as soon as possible. And just while we talk about Norwich and Leeds there, Johnny Rowe. Leeds United have been linked to Johnny Rowe. For anyone who doesn't know, because I'm seeing some wild takes that he's not worth 15 million, that Leeds might have to pay, etc.
Who said that?
There are takes on Twitter. I know Twitter's not the barometer, but there are takes on Twitter. He's not worth that 10, and that's that. And I'm like, I'm not sure you've watched this lad. I mean, admittedly, he wasn't great against Leeds, but Leeds were a great side. And, Firpo and Byram both did really well against him in all the games we played. But can you tell us a little bit about Johnny Rowe for those that don't know?
Oh, mate, he's quality.
So he's good.
Yeah, he's a goal-scoring winger, basically. Yeah. And I don't even know whether he went out on... I don't know if anyone can just quickly look it up in the chat, whether he went anywhere on loan, do you know, Joe, offhand? Or did he just...
I'm not sure, because I think in his debut season, he actually played against Bielsa's Leeds, because there's a clip doing the rounds. I don't know if you've seen it, Ben, but he says... It's an interview, and he gets asked, in your short career, you've played at some big stadiums, and they mention Old Trafford, Anfield and Ellen Road. And he says, well, Anfield it's known for its happening. Man United was amazing, but actually, the loudest was Leeds United, and he played in a game when Bielsa was there. So I think that was like his breakout season, and he looks so young in it. So I'm assuming
coming on as a sub, yeah.
But he actually said as well, he went, it's a dream to play in atmospheres like that. And then he went, imagine being on the other side of it, and we're all watching it going, he's basically wants to come to Leeds already.
Bit flirty.
Exactly.
Bit forward. The chat is saying that he never went out on loan. He just broke into the team, and it was last season was his breakthrough, and he started the season like a bloody house. I think he scored he had 6 goals. Really early in the season, was one of the top scorers. You might have seen a clip of a goal he scored against Hull away. It's just absolute filth. Where it's one of those games where classic Norwich David Wagner game where they weren't really in the game, and he just dribbles it up the pitch and outside of the right foot into the corner. And he's one of those players where he's just kind of a magnet for it. It's a bit of charisma and a bit of swag about him. And before the East Anglian derby, he gave it the big un on Twitter. Yeah. He did not play well in that game. He had 4 touches in our box and he scored twice.
Yeah, I remember.
So, and when I see that, I'm like, you're made for this, aren't you? Big occasion. Everyone's waiting for you. Some people shrink. So I think he's really good, and I think
he's an adequate enough Somerville replacement, isn't he? You're not going to get...
as good as... No, you're not going to get Somerville again, are you? No.
But,
So he's got a year left and a year option, so you're not going to get him cheap. That's the thing. And what I'll say about Norwich, they're really good at getting good fees, and they've just sold
Sarah, haven't they?
Sarah. So it's a seller's negotiation, this one. So I know all the Leeds fans, and I'm not insulting, this is all football fans. All the Leeds fans in your chat will come up with a figure that's probably 40% too low. All the Norwich fans will come up with a figure that's probably 40% too high.
Yeah.
Take those two figures, meet in the middle, and you'll get an actual realistic number, not attached to any emotion or what anyone wants the best thing for their club to be. But I think that would be a lovely sign for Leeds.
100%, yeah. And I think Leeds fans would be over the moon with it. At the end of the day, you're never going to replace Somerville at this level. But if you look across the division at players that could come in, your Jack Clarks, your Morgan Whitakers, your Johnny Rose, he's right up there. He's very young. There's even a sell-on value if Leeds were to get promoted and he did really well. You'd still make your money and then some as well. So I think it'd be a great deal if we can get it done and if Norwich are willing to chat to us. Because the initial rumblings was 7 million, Ben. I don't know if you've seen that. And Norwich have gone... No,
Norwich can literally just, stick the option in on the contract. That feels...
Cost.
I'm not being funny. If Leeds are going to go in at 7 million, I think there'll be a few Premier League clubs would just go as well and take him and blow Leeds out of the water.
I think Wolves were linked with him as well. I know Alex Crook said they're not looking at him anymore, but if it was 7 million, like you say, they'd probably go, well, we'll have him for that price.
I'll repeat myself. Have you seen the money Norwich got for Ben Godfrey, and Max Aarons and Jamal Lewis. And a few of those players even flamed out a little bit. Norwich get really good fees.
Yeah, and someone actually put up a list. It was actually a Norwich fan of a history of Leeds linked to Norwich players, right?
And the other way round.
Yeah, and all these players, and they said, and the one they got was Sam Byram. So we had all these links to all these players, and then actually at the bottom it was like, we only managed to get one, and it was Sam Byram. So notoriously, they've been able to take from us, but it doesn't look like we've been able to do the same. So hopefully it changed.
I reckon if the guys in the chat played for both, there could be 15 or 20 in the last 20 years, couldn't there?
Yeah,
but
it'd be a decent Championship 11 for sure, I think, if you put that together. Yeah, definitely. Let's talk about Leeds then. Leeds' chances. You've already spoke on your channel, people. Ben's channel is in the title as well, by the way, so you just need to click it and go on over. He's done a great video on the 24-1, so after this, go watch it, because you get a great insight on all the teams and why he's put them there, and then you can also put in the chat where you think yours are going to finish. So I won't spoil where he's put Leeds United. But Leeds United, Ben, me, I'm always going to say this regardless of if we're rubbish or not, but I think we're going to do really well. But continuity is key. Yes, we've lost a few players, but if I still look at the 11 that went out against Valencia and beat them comfortably 2-0 last weekend, it was relatively the same. I think Jayden Bogle's been a huge pickup from Sheffield United. Yes, Gray's a big loss, but actually Bogle's a proper right back, so the loss won't be felt as much. Mateo Joseph, by the way, who you'll have seen off the bench a couple of times, he's played in pre-season. He's been absolutely phenomenal, Ben. So watch out for him. He's now leading the line. He's scored maybe 4 in pre-season and done a really great job of that. I think behind him you've got Nonto, you've got Rutter, and you've got Dan James. Ampadu's back in midfield as well, with Strauch. Yeah, Strauch being back at centre-back now that he's back from his injury. So I'm really positive, and I'm expecting us, and I know this is a take, but I'm expecting us to run away with it. And the reason I say that is because I think we could do something similar to what we did last season, but I just don't think the other teams will. And I think the division's a lot more competitive for those in the chasing pack that they'll
You mean across the board, yeah?
Across the board, yeah.
Okay,
right. Last season, at the end of the day, Southampton were 1 win away from also getting 90 points. So you had 4 teams with 90-plus points in effect. You're not getting that this time. I think it's so much more competitive. So, and maybe I am being a bit arrogant or whatever. I also expect it from the club. I want Leeds United front and centre from game 1 up to game 46. And I know it's not as easy as that, but I think it's the least we can expect from this squad, this manager, and not having the excuses and context put on it like we did last. Rightly so, by the way. Last season, that first month was a travesty for Leeds, but we don't have that this time. So for me, front and centre, game 1, Portsmouth get beat on Saturday, and we just go from there. Now that's my hype for Leeds, obviously. But what you're going to bring me back down to earth and be a bit cautious, I think maybe.
Maybe you need to be a bit cautious, but the premise of what you're saying is not unreasonable at all, is it? And I do happen to agree with you on continuity and stability, and even changing division and 4 players in and 5 players out is a big thing for the relegated teams. And obviously Burnley have a new manager as well. And Leeds now have a manager here who's got 90 points in his last 94, 97 and 90 in his last 3 championship seasons. So you have a manager who has won a hell of a lot of points at championship level. And look at the players that have come in. Rodon, well, talk about familiar. He was there all last season. Yeah. Bogle played in the championship with Derby and Sheffield United. Rothwell literally got promoted on loan at Bournemouth last time he was here as well. So there have been those few changes, but it feels very championship savvy, very championship ready. I appreciate your hype of Matteo Joseph, but I would not be surprised if you guys had signed a striker with some of the Somerville money, and Matteo Joseph is not leading the line for you. But I'm prepared to be, better than me on that one, Joe. I totally agree with you that the two mitigating factors you pointed out were relevant. The outlier ridiculous season with the excessive high points total, and all 3 year one parachute teams performing, plus a freak lightning in a bottle season from Ipswich. So that's not going to happen, surely. And I agree, the first 5 games or whatever it was, until you played Ipswich, that it was a difficult start. I think those excuses go away this season. And I think you could be, with a fair wind, around a similar points total. And every one of those seasons, go and look it up for Norwich twice and for Leeds last season. Not only has it been 90 points, there's been a winning streak in each of those seasons as well. I think he did 8, 9. And what did he do last season, Joe? Did he do 7 in a row?
I know we went 13 games without conceding, didn't we? 13 games without conceding.
That wasn't a winning streak, though, was it? I don't think you got into double figures, because that would have been a record. Must have been 8 or 9 games, mustn't it?
Yeah, it was a lot. There was a lot. From January onward, there was a hell of a lot of games won. I want someone, actually, if they can, I'm going to do it, actually. So I wonder how many points so in the last 3 seasons, he's got over 90, so it's crazy, actually, when you think of it like that.
It's like Kieran McKenna type numbers, isn't it? Who can actually beat Daniel Farkas with his 99 and 96 in the last 2 seasons. But we're not here to talk about Ipswich, are we, Joe?
We're not. Which, by the way, Ben, I do hope you stay up. I've got a feeling Ipswich could have a Sheffield United style impact on the Premier League and bloody some noses.
It's the only way it can happen, isn't it? Otherwise, it's relegation in every other scenario.
Like, even on that opening day, everyone's expecting you to get walloped 4 or 5. I mean, we lost 4-3 to Liverpool, but we played in a way that everyone went, oh, hang on a minute, they've got some. And I think Ipswich could do something the same. Obviously, Liverpool in transition a little bit.
Sorry, Joe, I meant to ask you a question. Explain to me this Ampadu thing, because all the Leeds fans were telling me at the start of 9, thank you, Jack and chat. All the Leeds fans were telling me when Leeds started motoring in January, it was because Ampadu had been moved back into centre-back when Strauch was injured. And you had this, A, authority and leadership there, and B, you had a player who was basically a midfielder who's really comfortable on the ball. So what's changed that you're confident that it's going to be better with him in midfield when the opposite was true in January?
So I would disagree on the Leeds fans that say it was Ampadu back in at centre-back. I would say it's the arrival of Patrick Bamford, but too many Leeds fans won't tell you that because they hate Patrick Bamford. But it was actually Patrick Bamford that was key to that, which meant that then Pirro came out of the side. Rutter was able to play the 10, because if you remember before that, he had Rutter in the 9 and Pirro in the 10, and it was just not good.
Both kept running to the same square foot on the pitch, didn't they?
So I've always wanted Ampadu back in midfield. I think Strauch's underappreciated. I think on the ball he's really good. I don't think anyone, in terms of progressing the ball up the pitch, he was doing crazy numbers before he actually got injured. And Ampadu's now been made the official captain, Ben, and we're seeing a different Ampadu in pre-season. He's got bite about him. He's
a really good player.
Yeah, but he's almost like took on, right, I'm now captain of this football club, and we've all noticed he's I won't say nasty, but he's got a little bit of a bite in him, which, and to be honest, mate, he's against Valencia, for example, he put 3 or 4 balls over the top for Rutter and James to chase into, and he was just great. So for me, in there, and he's able to drop in, like someone just said in the chat, in between the 2 centre-backs when needed, when we're building up as well.
So, Joe, if it's a 4-2-3-1, Ampadu and...
So it was Gruev. It was Gruev against Valencia, which surprised a few people. But in pre-season, again, he's been getting further advanced. But Leeds United have come out and said, we want a left-back cover and we want a number 8. So we want someone to be that attacking 8 alongside Ampadu, because it looks like Rothwell's just going to sit on the bench and be an option like he was at Southampton. Because obviously we lost Kamara, but I think we want an attacking 8. We did bid for a guy called Lubicic at Cologne, but that's gone quiet now. It got rejected. We want a left-back on loan from the Premier League to cover for Firpo, and then Johnny Rowe, hopefully, to replace Somerville. And we're hoping and praying there's no more exits, because Everton looking, and also Brighton had a look at Rutter. That's the one player. If we were to lose Rutter, and if the club were to sell Rutter, the fans would be up in arms. But also then I'd start to worry, because he's the ace in the pack. I don't know if you've seen it, Ben, but he's finished again. Oh my God,
Joe, I have a rule, mate. I'm so sorry. It's a beautiful goal, but I do not judge anything on pre-season friendlies.
I know.
But it's a
I
beautiful
get it.
goal. Yeah.
But he's actually been hitting the target in pre-season and got a couple of goals, which last season, 9 times out of 10, his shots ended up in Rowe's head. So it looks like he's improving that side of his game as well. So, and if he does that, I mean, the world's his oyster.
What's your take on my view that you could do with, even if it was a good one on loan, a number 9?
I think initially I said that, and we were linked to people like Jebison. We were even linked to Jay Stansfield, for example, on loan. And I was like, I don't mind someone coming in to compete with Joseph. But having seen Joseph in pre-season, you're bringing someone in then to stifle him in a sense. So I think we're going to have to rely on Bamford to be fit enough off the bench, and then if not, it'll be Pirro. I would like us to get another striker, if I'm honest. I can't lie to you, but I just don't think the club will. And I don't want to bring in another young, up-and-coming striker, because I genuinely think that Joseph's probably going to get top scorer, if I'm honest, Ben.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, he's that good. I promise you, he's that good. Like, I know a lot of Leeds fans have started to put bets on. Honestly, he's looked phenomenal.
I've not seen enough of him. My question to you would be: we both think Daniel Farke's a very smart guy. Yeah. If he was that good, where was he the last 6 months of last season?
Well, to be honest, a lot of the fans wanted him in. I wasn't one of them, because I'm big on Bamford. He played in the Carabao Cup game against Chelsea and scored 2 goals.
Scored two, didn't he? Yeah.
And then from that, it was right. We need to get him in. We need to get him in. But I actually think, Ben, that Farke's played it perfectly, because he's come back from pre-season. He was getting minutes off the bench, but he's come back from pre-season. He looks bigger. He looks hungrier. To be honest, you can tell the club are sort of making him the poster boy, because a lot of the YouTube stuff's Mateo Joseph focused, a day in the life of Mateo Joseph while on pre-season and stuff. So I think he's very much been held up for the guy. And look, he was at Espanyol. He played for England. Then Spain have took him. They wanted him to go to the Olympics, but the club said no. So he's clearly, by a mad twist of events, he's actually related to Emil Heskey. Yeah, it's mad. It's mad. No, he's.
I did not know that.
Yeah. He's. I think he's a cousin or something along those lines. Someone.
Can I ask you a horrible question that you'll hate to answer? If it goes wrong,
yes.
What does that look like? How is that Farke repeating the same thing, and everyone watching the tape back from last year and knowing how to stop it? Is it injuries? I don't know. Because I can't see how Leeds year 2 parachutes, fairly similar squad, reasonable recruitment so far, needs, as you say, a couple more. You know, size and stature relative to division easier. I'm struggling to think. I know you're not going to want me to say this. I'm struggling to see how that's not a team towards the top of the table. What does it going wrong look like?
So for me, the big question mark over Farke was his substitutions and his lack of tactical flexibility.
He's not a tournament manager, is he? He's a league manager, isn't he? Yeah.
Like at the end of a game, if we were losing, you probably watched it yourself, he'd put 3 centre-backs on and throw about 10 men up top. And, well, that's not mathematically possible, but you get what I'm saying, yeah? You get what I'm saying, right?
I do.
So, and I put a lot of that down to him not having the squad. Like, if we look at the playoff final, we didn't have one midfielder on the bench. We had Jamie Shackleton. He's now at Sheffield United. We had Charlie Creswell. He's now playing in France. These were players that he didn't fancy. Now, if we go back to pre-season, the last game, he had Bamford, he had Pirro, he had Rothwell, he had James Debayo, who's a centre-back young player. He had Brendan Aronson, he had Max Vober, and he had Carl Darlow, let's say. So his bench is now stacked. So the thing for me is, if we're drawing on Saturday and it's the 60th minute, I want to see him making proactive changes because he's not getting any excuses to not do that now. And I think that's where a lot of criticism will come, because we can look back and say, last season, okay, we get it, but now you've got the players, now you've got the squad, and you're still not using them, then you're the problem. So that's where I think it'll go down.
Can I push back against that in the form of a question? Do you remember in 2018-19 Norwich winning 4-3 and 3-2 and scoring lots of late goals, often after a brilliant substitution by Daniel Farke? So I wonder if he's got a bit more conservative, because I remember going and watching Norwich.
It worked once, Ben. It worked once.
Okay.
The rest of the season, it didn't work.
Well, I just saw firsthand. Okay, this was a few years ago, but Norwich were in that title run-in. They were away at Wigan, and Wigan had Reece James, and were playing him in central midfield, and he was taking the Michael basically and running the game. And Norwich were losing. I was sat there thinking they've really got him on the ropes here. And these 3 Norwich subs came up to the touchline, and I'm like, what's he doing here? And I'd like to think I know my football. I stared at the pitch for 5 minutes to figure out what the system was. And Joe, it was bloody thrilling. He played 2-3-5, all out attack, and they scored. They got the goal, and that happened. I'm just really disappointed to hear, and I'm not saying you're not correct in your analysis, but this was a manager who was famed for winning games in stoppage time in his championship breakthrough season. And I don't know, is he more conservative? Is it the pressure of doing it at Leeds?
It just didn't correlate. Like I say, it worked once, but outside of that, it just didn't work. And I think the key thing is as well, where Leeds United struggled, is breaking down low blocks and just putting more bodies in an area that was already congested. Just didn't work. And he did do that. Like, he would put 3 at the back, like he would move Gray to the right of it, and then have, say, Rowe, Don and Ampadu, and then everyone else would just be up the top end. And it was very much like, or we'd have players in the box, but then we wouldn't put it in the box and just go from right to left. But we have seen a little bit more incision with the passing, and that's why Rothwell's been brought in as well to come onto the games to, quicken up the play a little bit.
To be fair, Joe, sorry to interrupt, at Norwich, what those subs would end up being. Do you remember Mario Vrancic? He's basically Vrancic, the most luxury player you can get. He's not going to tackle, he's not going to run, but I think a lot of times he would be dropped. You're talking about everyone's forward. He would be the one in the quarterback position, and perhaps Leeds lack a deep-lying playmaker, created. All Leeds creative players are great dribbly wide guys, aren't they? Whereas maybe that player, and look, obviously, how much does a 21-year-old Pablo Hernandez cost you? But that player that can sit a little bit further back and just pick low blocks off, but it's expensive,
It is, mate. And the proof will be in the pudding, and hopefully the pudding tastes sweet and Leeds United just, we go.
That's quite Partridge, that, Joe. I like that.
Yeah, did you like that? Thanks for that, mate. Listen, we've done 50 minutes. Honestly, that went so good. I've really enjoyed it. I know the chat have as well. Listen, folks, there's 712 of you here right now. What I want you to do is go and click the title, Benjamin Bloom, going over and subscribe. He does say when he comes on, the Leeds fans always show the love. So I want to see some subscribers. Even if it's an incremental gain, it's still a gain, because he's a great content creator and it's always a great listen. Ben, do you want to tell them about the channel and what to expect this season?
Yeah. There'll still be plenty of championship stuff. And the thing I point you towards every Monday is the Championship Check-In podcast with Sam Parkin. And Sam is obviously like a Sky co-commentator and an ex-player. So as much as you can't rival people like Joe and my passion, we're fans at the end of the day. And it's great to have someone that's been the other side of the white line chatting as well. So there will be some Premier League stuff and some Ipswich stuff, but we will churn out week on week the championship content as well. And
how excited are you, Ben? I'm so excited for Friday, and Leeds aren't even playing. I'm so excited.
I'm massively excited, and I always say this with love to the Leeds fans. It can be a bit cult-like at times, can't it, if you get on the wrong side of the Leeds bunch. But in general, they love their football. They are mad, passionate, and I've had some great interactions with Leeds United fans over time. Not that I would wish non-promotion on anyone, but it's nice to have them in the division. Let's just
Of course. It's nice to see opposing fans, because I know Nunny's a Plymouth fan. We've got Nigel, who's a Norwich fan as well. All boxed up. Says, I recommend Ben's channel as well, as does Lee. As do I.
I recommend your new production, by the way, Joe. I'm seeing
the video.
Yeah, the new intro. Your last one had that drop, and I always remember doing a slow headbang to it whilst we're waiting on the intro. And I like the logo and everything. So tremendous.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, Ben. You've got to improve, haven't you, over time? You've got to try to anyway. But yeah, thanks for watching. Everyone, go check out Ben's channel. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Tomorrow is Wednesday. And I am going to be speaking, thanks to Ben, actually. I am going to be speaking to a Portsmouth fan tomorrow night, 9:30.
Oh, he's really good, Joe.
Yes,
yeah, you'll enjoy that.
Yeah, Tom from what was the name again? 4-0.
4-0 written. Is it, Joe? Is it still a bit naughty between Leeds and Portsmouth in those games? Or was that more Leeds Cardiff? Was it?
Yeah, Leeds Cardiff. Yeah. I don't really remember anything on Portsmouth. No, but
there's always trouble down at Portsmouth after those away games, isn't there?
Yeah, there is definitely. And so tomorrow night I'll be speaking to a Portsmouth fan on an Oppo preview. We're going to bring them back for next season so we can get the lowdown on them, and there'll be some transfer stuff during the day. Check out Ben's channel, and we shall see you all in a bit, folks. Bye.